Last year I reviewed the 3DS version of Dragon Quest XI and basically said it was the best RPG on the platform. Well, now I'm back in 2018 and having just completed an entire playthrough of the game on Twitch, I'm ready to review the PlayStation 4 version. If you want the Reader's Digest version of this review, Dragon Quest XI is the best RPG on the PlayStation 4. It's that simple. It's a wonderfully crafted RPG that harkens back to the previous entries in the series, while simultaneously introducing many excellent quality of life improvements fans have been asking for years, such as being able to save at other locations outside of churches. Considering the size and scope of the game, I'm certain I'm going to forget something in this review, but I will do my best to cover absolutely everything you could want to know about the game without spoiling anything. So sit back and enjoy a lengthy review of one of the best installments in the Dragon Quest franchise. So the very first question I always get asked about this game is it better than Dragon Quest VIII? And I find that rather interesting because how come no one is talking about Dragon Quest III, or 4, or 5, or 9? My answer to that question is this. Dragon Quest XI is the very best single-player Dragon Quest game of all time. The story is powerful and rich and has ties directly to some of the very earliest entries in the series. The closest Dragon Quest game that this resembles is indeed Dragon Quest VIII, where you have a lush and rich overworld to explore, lots of side quests to take part in, and a sweeping tale that will keep you hooked for hours at a time. The game is broken up into 3 acts. 2 that make up what you would consider the traditional game, and then after the credits roll, you're treated to the 3rd act in what many Dragon Quest fans call the Postgame. I will mention this right now. When this game comes out in North America and Europe, do not stop playing after the initial ending and credits, as you're going to be missing out on about 20 hours of additional storyline. You will most certainly regret it. With Dragon Quest VIII, the post-game focused on the hero's backstory and the Dragovian trials, and it continues to amaze me today just how few people have gone through the post-game of a game that they claim to love so much. Another question I often get asked is what kind of side quests are there? So let me answer that right now. There are 60 actual side quests in the game. These range from going to a certain spot to finding a specific item, to challenging and defeating a super boss, to crafting a 3-star item, and so on. As you progress in the game, more and more quests unlock, and yes, there are around 20 or so quests that are exclusive to the post-game. Naturally, there's also a casino or 2 thrown in for good measure, and I always recommend going to the casinos as you can get yourself some really powerful weapons and armor early on if you spend a couple hours at the slot machines. There is no monster arena in this game, but there are 2 different sets of trials. One village you will eventually get to will challenge you with defeating specific monsters in rounds with limited party members. Even at level 99, beating the last tier will prove very challenging. Finally, there are the Nelson trials, and these work very similarly to the Dragovian trials from Dragon Quest VIII, except these ones have 3 different dungeons that make up the trials. Speaking of which, there are a lot of different things you can do in the post-game, such as returning to some of the previously completed dungeons to face new challenges. But don't worry, this isn't like Dragon Quest VII, which I know a lot of you find tedious and repetitive. Here you can breeze through the areas to focus solely on the point of interest. All this content is well worth checking out as the rewards are superb, ranging from skill seeds to weapon recipes and much more. Speaking of recipes, the blacksmithing mechanic from Dragon Quest X is here, and I know many of you watching this review will not have experienced Dragon Quest X before, as it hasn't been released in North America or Europe, but believe me when I say it's a great little mini-game where you combine ingredients to make some truly epic weapons, armor, or accessories. You can make items up to a 3-star ranking, which greatly enhances the item in question. Let's say you wanted to make, a new one-handed sword. and you fail to get any stars, well, that weapon might end up doing, say, plus 40 damage, for example. If you did get a 3-star ranking, however, that weapon might do a plus 75 damage as well as have an additional elemental attack added. So you can see how this can get quite interesting. I should also mention that you have nothing to worry about if you fail to get a good star ranking, as you can use these little orbs to try again, although these are limited until you reach the postgame when you can purchase additional ones. Considering the blacksmithing mechanic is such a large part of the game, you might be wondering if the Alchemy Pot is featured in Dragon Quest XI, and the answer is no, it is not. Tension is also not part of the game, and neither are classes. This might seem like a shocking surprise, especially coming off some of the more recently released games on the 3DS, and those of us lucky enough to have played Dragon Quest X. But the truth is, this was done to streamline the experience. Each of the party members serves a specific role. The hero is your damage character with some light healing, Veronica is your power offensive magic user, Senya your healer, etc. Each one of these characters has access to a skill tree system. Now wait, before you close the video, hear me out. None of the characters become clones of one another. The skill tree works as such. Each character eventually has access to 2 or 3 different weapon types, and then more passive-based abilities. You can use skill points you get from leveling up to unlock a wide assortment of skills, stat bonuses, and more. This is really important because some of these skills will allow you to have a 100% chance to hit any enemy, including the elusive metal slimes. It's fun to mix and match, and depending on how deep you get with the system, you can easily master the entire grid, or just about, by hitting level 99. And let me tell you, none of the characters will ever feel the same, because each will have their own strengths and weaknesses against different situations and bosses and enemies. Some skills will even unlock chain attacks, which is part of a new system called In the Zone. The way it works is like this. After your characters have received enough damage, they will enter a heightened state of tension, sort of like the old tension system from some of the previous games. This will grant them access to new moves, which can then be chained with other characters. If you get multiple people in the zone at once, you can access even more powerful chain attacks. This is why the system is so much fun to mess around with, as there are a wide assortment of wicked specials you can pull off. When Dragon Quest XI was originally announced and showcased or highlighted, I heard a lot of comments from people saying this wasn't a turn-based RPG, and well, that's not true at all. Yes, there are different camera settings that you can use, but you still have to wait your turn to attack, select a command, and issue it just like in all the other games in the series. You can also use a variety of AI-controlled options if you're into that. For my specific playthrough of the PlayStation 4 version, I did use AI for a large portion of the game only to speed things up, but you most certainly do not have to do that. The combat system is very much like what you would expect from a Dragon Quest game, where you can attack, defend, use magic attacks, or special skills. Couple these elements with the new zone mechanic, and you have a nice, simple, but well-rounded combat system that doesn't get old. One new element added to the game is the ability to ride monsters to access areas you wouldn't be able to otherwise. You might be able to ride a small dragon to soar high up to unreachable platforms, or maybe a new enemy that allows you to jump great distances and so on. This is another quality of life improvement. And it's also a nice diversion and adds an interesting element to the exploration. And speaking of which, the game world is massive, and there's almost always something off in the distance that will pique your interest and cause you to lose an hour or two trying to figure out how you're going to reach that teasing red chest up in the corner over there. When I reviewed the 3DS version, I said it was likely going to be the superior version of the game thanks to the exclusive features it had, and that's kinda true. If you don't have any memories of playing the earlier games in the series, then, well, you're not really missing out on anything. Buy this version and love it. But the reason why the 3DS version is so interesting is that it features a side quest that allows you to revisit certain areas of all the past 10 Dragon Quest games, and that's just bloody awesome. The graphics downgrade back to the original games on their original systems, including the Famicom, Super Famicom, etc., which again is just awesome. The fact you can play the game in 2D is also fantastic. With the PS4 version, you're given a target shooting minigame, which, while fun, doesn't really hold a candle to the 3DS exclusive features. Again though, considering so few North Americans and Europeans have that deep connection with the series, I really don't think you're going to miss out too much on that feature. While the PlayStation 4 version may not have all the extra bells and whistles when it comes to exclusive features, it does have one thing that the 3DS version does not, and that is one of the most beautiful and breathtaking graphics ever seen in an RPG. Make no mistake about it, this is one stunning video game. Toriyama's art style looks incredible, and the world is just mesmerizing. When you couple it with the incredible soundtrack from Sugiyama-san, you have yourself a masterpiece in video game design. Now, I will admit that I didn't enjoy this soundtrack quite as much as some of the earlier Dragon Quest games. It's still very good, and I should point out that Sugiyama-san is almost 90 years old, so he sticks with what he knows. I also should point out that there's no voice acting in the game whatsoever, which I believe will be added for the North American and European releases. One need only look to Dragon Quest VIII to see how vastly superior the worldwide release was compared to the Japanese original, and I have a very good feeling that that is exactly what's going to happen with this game. And now I could go on and on and on, but I think this is a good place to wrap it up. I purposely didn't talk about the storyline, but I hope I've given you enough information to pick this game up when it's eventually released around the world. We know this version is coming, but we don't know precisely when. I can tell you all with confidence that you will not be disappointed if you enjoy turn-based JRPGs. This was such a delight to play through, and I cannot wait to see what they have in store for us next.